Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. It's been quite some time since we did our last live stream on this channel. It's probably been around a couple of weeks or so, but it is currently the end of the month. And I believe that it's important that we give a little bit of an update in terms of the midterm fallout, in terms of the 2024 election and the drama and infighting that is really going to be surrounding that, as well as, yes, we will touch a little bit on the Georgia runoff as well, because that will be taking place in the state of Georgia in approximately 6 days from now, and I will be going live to cover the results, and I still am not anticipating Herschel Walker to win. It doesn't really seem as if he's doing that well in the early voting so far, and even though we know that that's not fully indicative, it's not looking too good. If he got a plurality in the first round, it probably would be a little bit more encouraging than it currently is now, and the GOP doesn't really seem to be giving him too much help either. So we'll have to see what goes on there, but either way, I do hope he wins. I sent a donation his way. I encourage other people to send donations his way down the stretch, but still, we have quite some time. This live stream will mainly be touching on the current war within the GOP, the current drama surrounding the 2024 election. And yes, we will be getting to the super chats when they come in. We will be getting to the live audience as well. Well, not live audience as in like it's surrounding me in person, but live audience in terms of the live chat, and see what you guys have to say. We put a poll out. I put a poll up probably around, 10 minutes ago or so, 18 minutes ago, of the current audience and who they prefer in 2024. And these stream watchers, of 217 of them to be specific, that voted in the poll, Donald Trump is at 62%. 50-50 are people that are on the fence, but still would enthusiastically, presumably, support either candidate. That's 12%. Then you have those that are the DeSantis stands, or you could even say DeSimps. Some of them, I don't think every DeSantis supporter is necessarily just somebody who is acting in bad faith, because you do have a lot of misguided people. But either way, you see DeSantis there at 18%. Good amount of them may be some of the DeSimp types. And we're going to be talking about the DeSimps as well, because they're acting very insufferable. And honestly, it's not exactly helping Ron DeSantis in the process. It's just dividing the party unnecessarily, which is a massive problem. And then we have the other candidates, which again, Kanye West is now running for president. I'm sure some people will send in super chats about that. And then you have other people like Glenn Youngkin and some other candidates that people are floating to run that may be more, serious options or whatever. But 8% voted for others. So that's the end of the poll that I put up. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It should be a fun primary process. Ron DeSantis has not officially announced running for president, and he may not actually run. And this is something that people need to understand, is that he will not really be likely to jump in this race until, I don't know, maybe June, July, which is the end of the first legislative session in Florida for his second term. He's going to probably, if he does plan on running, he's going to try to rack up as many accomplishments as he possibly can, have this "I'm getting things done" appearance, and then he's going to be running for president in the primary. And he's gotten a lot of people that are throwing support his way. And people that support DeSantis, just the question that I ask surrounding this is, do you know who is propping this guy up for 2024? Because that's the thing. Because the establishment wants Trump gone. They are blaming him for everything. They will take zero accountability for their own failures during the midterm elections. They will blame Donald Trump and nobody else. And if they would have lost with some, I guess, less Trumpian candidates, which still very well could have possibly happened, then they would have blamed Donald Trump for his base staying home, or they would have said he didn't help out, he's not the team player, when they weren't the team players. We know that. We saw exactly what they did. They spent money that was laundered in many cases from Ukraine, and they spent that money on candidates or against candidates in certain primaries, just slandering them, didn't even help them in the general election in many cases. And then you see the fallout. And then you see what happens. And that's pretty much what we know. But furthermore, they're blaming Donald Trump for this. All these rhinos, these neocons, etc. These are the people that are propping up Ron DeSantis in 2024. Most of them. Most people that are supporting DeSantis, in terms of the big power players or the people that are just begging him to run, the establishment, they are all in his corner. So for the people out there in the audience, of which I'm sure there are many who do prefer DeSantis to Trump because they think that like DeSantis is just like Trump with less baggage, or they think that the media is going to go easier on Ron DeSantis, hypothetically, if he is basically just as much of a threat to the system as Donald Trump, which is, again, not true. But either way, these are the people propping this guy up. These are not these people that say, hey, Donald Trump fell short here, here, and here. DeSantis got this and this done, and we need DeSantis over Trump. No, these are the people like, you look at these Daily Wire types, for example, some of them, not all of them, not Michael Knowles, but your classic never Trumpers back in 2016 during the primaries. These are the people propping him up. The people like Ben Shapiro, just all of these mega donors that have formed these super PACs to draft Ron DeSantis, that have already have like tens of millions of dollars pumped into them. These are pretty much all of the people that are supporting DeSantis. Very few of them, in fact, none of them that I have seen back Trump in the 2016 primaries. The only people that really did, maybe you have people like, I don't know, Mike Cernovich, people like that, people that are just total like grifters. Like those are some of the people that are supporting DeSantis over Trump now because they've grifted off of Donald Trump and they still want to remain in the good graces of the establishment. That's what it comes down to. So that's pretty much it. So if DeSantis takes the bait and listens to these people and lets them into his inner circle, what you are going to get essentially, and let's say he does go out there and defeat Donald Trump in the 2024 primary, you are going to get a Mitt Romney 2012 administration. That's what you are going to get. And he has a lot of similarities. Everyone wants to compare him to Trump, but nobody wants to compare him to Romney, or even dare I say the word Jeb Bush, because Jeb Bush was a popular governor out of the state of Florida for many years. And he was seen as that instant front runner in 2016 for, several years leading up to the 2016 election. It was supposed to be a Chris Christie versus Jeb Bush primary. And what exactly happened? Well, Donald Trump came along and he won it. Now, this is what people need to understand. So the people that are surrounding this guy, and a lot of them sound exactly like resist libs now when it comes to Donald Trump. A lot of them sound exactly like they're deranged liberals. And these are the people that are propping this guy up. So the people that still support him, I want to know from the live chat or from the super chats, what makes you think that Ron DeSantis is going to be stronger or just as strong as Donald Trump if the people supporting him are all the same people that opposed Trump in 2016, supported the neocons, supported McCain, supported Romney, some of which even supported Joe Biden in 2020 and Hillary Clinton in 2016 in the general election, if not Evan McMuffin. Exactly. So what is the answer? I'm looking for the answer, and I can't exactly find it. So that doesn't necessarily mean that, DeSantis' tenure as governor is discredited, or some of the things that DeSantis has been saying lately are not good or true, because he really has hit a lot of the right notes, even though he's done so fairly robotically. He's, read them off of, I don't know, a flashcard in front of the news media. And then the whole conservative establishment media, formerly Never Trump in 2016, fawns over this guy as like, wow, he really owned that journalist. And he's like reading a focus group tested line off of a note card. So that's pretty much what it is. Fox News is propping this guy up, the Daily Wire, a lot of these establishment conservative outlets. These are the people that are going overboard to prop this guy up. So what exactly is the political ideology of the people that are supporting him as well, the diehard DeSimps, the neo-never-Trumpers. What do they bring to the table? A lot of them are not conservative in any way, shape, or form. Maybe fiscally conservative. That's not going to save this country in and of itself, and that's a problem. You look at DeSantis' record in Congress when he was at the national level, not the state level. He wasn't a train wreck in Congress. He wasn't a rhino necessarily, but, he was just somebody who was kind of just a run-of-the-mill guy, maybe here and there had Tea Party tendencies, but that was pretty much about it, which kind of shows that he is somebody that just falls in line with whatever the GOP establishment status quo is. And if they get Donald Trump out of the way and all of these bad people, the neocons, the people funding him, are going to have the final say at the end of the day, and they end up winning, guess what's going to happen? He's going to fall in line with the GOP of old, the days of 2004, more so than the days of 2022, except nowadays DeSantis would never, even dare to have the decent social policies that, Bush had. We understand what those are. I mean, Bush was better than Trump on the alphabet issues, but given the fact that it was the time of 2004 compared to the time now, it's vastly different. And if he goes in there, what's he going to do at the federal level? We need more than DeSantis is what I'm saying. We need more than Trump even. Donald Trump himself, is he going to be able to single-handedly save this country? No, he's not. I mean, if he gets the nomination, he'll be there for 4 more years, but there's going to have to be somebody after him. Ideally, somebody better. And we'll have to really wait and see what that is, but hopefully we can continue to effectively move the Overton window in the right direction to overcorrect from this absolute insane turn that we've seen over the past 50, 60 years. So ideally, we need somebody who is better and more effective than Trump, but DeSantis is not necessarily going to be that guy. I mean, somebody that's going to be more effective and more, I guess you would say, better than Trump is also going to be somebody that's more despised by the establishment, but still capable of winning, which we haven't found that person yet. Trump kind of was this unique figure because he was an outsider with near universal name recognition who knew how to effectively manipulate the media. And it's interesting to see this time around what's going on with that, because the mainstream media has kind of initially shut out the whole Donald Trump announcement, which was strange because you have somebody who was a former president that just announced that he was running, and you saw very limited media coverage from even a lot of these establishment conservative media outlets. But then when Donald Trump does something controversial and has dinner at his house, which apparently he's not allowed to do, then the media goes crazy. And they just can't stay away from covering this guy. It's like they're cocaine for some reason. Maybe it's because it brings the ratings, fear-mongering and having TDS brings the ratings, especially. But the problem is now you have the whole conservative media complaining about Trump just like it's 2015. He's going to have to go through this whole process again. The downside of it is, yes, he is 8 years older. And that is very true. I mean, there are flaws there. He still has more energy than Ron DeSantis. He still has more charisma than Ron DeSantis, but still, he's going to have to go through the same process. But the thing is, the more controversial things that he does, it's probably going to be better for him in the long run, because the media is going to be covering him. They'll say, this guy is unfit for the presidency. His base turns out in the primary, he'll win the primary. The problem is that the GOP is going to do everything possible to sabotage this guy in the general election. They will. They sabotaged all of his candidates in the general. They left them out to dry. They're going to do everything possible to have all of their defectors endorse Biden or whoever the Democrat nominee is, and they'll make some backroom deal and they'll get something out of it. And that's kind of where the dooming sets in, because it's not even dooming, it's just reality, because I'm not going to sit up here and say, oh, Trump's guaranteed victory in 2024. He could be. But the GOP doesn't want that to actually happen. They could have rallied behind him from day one, but they're not, because they have a different agenda than Trumpism. One of the super PACs that is funded to prop up Ron DeSantis 2024 says in their manifesto or in their mission statement that they're trying to root populism and nationalism out of the GOP. And if these are the people that are propping up DeSantis the most, why would anybody in their right mind say that this is a good idea? He could maybe, I don't know, not be listening to these people, but you really think that DeSantis, the career politician, is like going to go full dark DeSantis mode, and he's going to go out there and he's going to just, shill on the campaign trail for all the things the donors want him to be shilling for, and then get into office and turn around and do a 180? I mean, claims like that are basically in line with the claims that, oh, Joe Biden, Dark Brandon banned abortion. Like, no, it's not exactly how it works. But either way, it's just basically like a meme the more you think about it, when you take all of these things and you put them together. Because DeSantis at the state level, okay, maybe we could be nice and say it was probably in line with Trump's first term in terms of effectiveness and things that he got done, because a lot more should have been getting done, honestly, given the majority that he has there in Florida. I get that, but still, it's like, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. So either way, this is going to be a massive, massive primary, and the drama will set in. Now, the other candidates that would potentially be running, I guess there really aren't any. Kanye West has announced a run. Nobody knows if he's going to be running as a Republican or running as an independent, but either way, who cares? It's really going to come down to Trump and DeSantis. I haven't seen any polling with Kanye, and it's kind of one of those I'll believe it when I see it type of things if he does actually end up gaining any ground in the primary, which we'll cover it then. But as of right now, I just see this as a Trump versus DeSantis primary. So we'll really have to just wait and see what happens down the stretch. But still, the insufferability of these people is not going to help DeSantis win. Just acting like a resist lib, acting like a member of the Lincoln Project is not going to help this guy win. You're going to have to explain why he is a better candidate than Donald Trump, uniquely speaking. You're going to have to say he did this, this, and this. He's like this guy that we need to, move to because he's better than Trump. Not, oh, Trump is bad because he's old and he didn't do this and he didn't do this. So we need DeSantis, who, again, you don't even know what he would do at the national level. So we'll have to see. But this is a divided primary. It's even a divided audience on this live stream. We have 500 people. I guarantee you around 100 of them support Ron DeSantis over Donald Trump, and about another 50 to, I don't know, 100 voters or viewers are just kind of on the fence. But Trump was like literally supposed to be that guy in every primary poll probably around, I don't know, a year ago or so. Even Glenn Youngkin said when he was running for governor in Virginia back in 2021 in September in the general election, he pledged to support Trump in 2024 if he was going to run. So a lot has changed, and the psyops will continue to build up because they are trying to use this as a vehicle to go back to the GOP of old. Definitely, you could say, well, the Never Trump stuff is peaking now because of the midterms, but if anything, I've noticed it's ramping up. And maybe if it ramps up to a certain extent, it will help Trump and it will backfire because it's free media coverage again that he hasn't gotten, but we'll have to wait and see. But super chats, we have a lot of super chats that we're going to get to here. Ryan Tarrant says, fun fact, California voted to the right of Colorado, and LA voted to the right of Denver, Austin, Atlanta, and Minneapolis in the gubernatorial races. Yeah, what's going on in LA is kind of similar to what we saw in places like Miami-Dade, uniquely enough, but it's like very interesting because nobody's really talking about it, and probably because regardless of what happens in LA County, California is still going to be a safe Democrat state. But the California GOP has its act together more so than it did 10, 15 years ago. They're flipping back House seats Republican. I mean, they know exactly how to win a lot of these places. They know how to get 40% with a no-name candidate because they actually ballot harvest legally. They do the things the Dems do that a lot of Republicans complain about, but it helps them. They win. It's all in the mechanics. The polls would have accurately been correct throughout the whole midterm process if Republicans actually turned out. What we saw wasn't independents and Democrats not voting for Trumpian candidates or whatever. It's the unique independent voters that lean right that didn't turn out to vote, that may have been, I don't know, low propensity voters because they were a midterm election. So exactly, look at the actual numbers, look at where the turnout drop off truly was. I mean, even like in terms of Pennsylvania, they want to say, well, Mastriano sunk Oz in the suburbs, but the suburbs were not the biggest drop-off point for both of them. I mean, that was actually an interesting point, because the rural areas, the turnout for Mastriano, who had literally no funding, was extremely low, and a lot of people weren't inspired to turn out for Oz either because of his past liberal stances or whatever. And it definitely backfired in a lot of these places in Pennsylvania. It definitely weighed down the whole ticket. I mean, Mastriano would have lost regardless, but if you actually had funding and the Pennsylvania GOP had their act together, yeah, it probably would have been within 5 points or so, maybe 10 points, because you talk about the early definition of Mastriano was that he was this crazy person, unfit to serve. No response from him at all. I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to. There was no response from him. The GOP didn't define Shapiro the way that they could have, the way that Zeldin defined Hochul up in New York. That was actually effective, despite them being kind of similar with crime in certain cases. And it kind of just allowed Shapiro to pivot back to the center and talk about lowering taxes and school choice and things like that, and allowed him to win. So they'll blame Donald Trump for that. It's funny, even though Donald Trump only really endorsed Mastriano when it was evident that he was in the driver's seat to win the primary and nobody could stop him. He was at like 40% or so in the polls. Barletta couldn't catch him. Barletta, who's very lazy and would have also lost by a similar margin, by the way, and very well would have been defined in a very similar manner to how they defined Mastriano. The only difference is the GOP establishment would have gotten behind him a little bit more, which would have probably helped him get more funding, but it would not have been nearly enough, maybe even to carry Oz to the finish line. But again, you can't even say that, because even though you could say Mastriano weighed down the ticket, he weighed down Oz, Oz still underperformed the generic ballot by 10 points in the state, 5 when you factor out the undecided races. So that definitely plays a role as well. I mean, the generic ballot, you won the popular vote in Pennsylvania. You should have won it by more. But if you won the popular vote in PA in terms of Republicans down ballot winning and outperforming Mastriano by like 15, 16 points, Oz outperforming him by, I don't know, 9 or 10, there's still a massive gap there, and that blame can be put on Dr. Oz, you could say. Not on Donald Trump. Donald Trump had little impact on these midterms overall. I mean, the only primaries he really impacted were Pennsylvania. Wisconsin is another one. And you could maybe argue that in Wisconsin, Michaels was an awful candidate. I think in retrospect, yeah, Trump should not have endorsed him because, again, he's been somebody that's tried to achieve higher office in the past, failed miserably. In retrospect, not the best idea. You could say Arizona. We know what happened in Arizona. I don't need to talk about it, but it's not like Karen Taylor Robson was going to do any better. She was essentially Kelly Loeffler of Arizona. Unlikable, robotic, gold digger, and scammed elderly people. Would not have ended well in the slightest for her, and she would have debated Katie Hobbs, probably, and she would have probably been eviscerated by the crazy woman. So, yeah, no, that's not Donald Trump's fault either. Arizona, you can't even put on him. You could put it on Kelly Ward because even though I think she may have the right ideas, it's been poor execution. Doesn't exactly know how to get it done, doesn't know how to win when you talk about the mechanics of it. So that's pretty much it. And you could say, well, what about Georgia, where his Senate candidate underperformed all the people that he didn't like and didn't endorse or whatever? And it's like, yeah, but even like Nikki Haley, Mitch McConnell, the whole GOP establishment endorsed Herschel Walker as well. And ironically, he's one of the only people that's still alive, even though he likely is not going to end up winning. And they don't want to give Trump that victory either. They don't. They'll do everything possible to stop all of his candidates from achieving victory. They will. They did it significantly. Even the ones that are like liberal Republicans, like Oz or somebody that's kind of squishy, because they will use that as their mandate to say, hey, this guy cost us the midterms, get him out of the way, look at how well DeSantis did in Florida. That's what they'll say. And that's exactly what they've done. And I said they would do that on election night. You can go back and watch the stream, and guess what? That's exactly what they've done. So, 100%. Stephen Lee says Trump 2024, Tucker Carlson, or Ye 2028. We'll see. Let's get to 2024 first. Lifo Foley says, will we ever overturn same-sex marriage in our lifetime? I think Abergefell v. Hodges should be overturned. I think it very well could be overturned, but is it actually going to gain mainstream popularity to overturn it nationwide? I don't know. But we have a long, long way to go before we actually get there, because what's going on right now is an absolute train wreck. Republicans, not even just Republicans, because Republicans have been the ones caving, but conservatives in general have lost so much ground on these issues. They have to start fighting back, and the way that they exactly want to face these problems, they just cave and they say, oh no, codify it, semi-codify it. So many people. Yeah, you're not going to get it done. You need a united front against it. They're worried about what is electable and what is not electable. They don't even know what electability is. You know what electability is? It's where the money is. It's where the party unity is. And we saw that. We saw the worst candidates in the world on the Democrat side either come close or win states that they had no business winning. Why? Because they got the money behind him. They got the party establishment behind them, and they played to win in terms of the ballot harvesting operation. They got all their voters. They cannibalized them early, but it was more than it really needed. It was more than enough to win, and that's the problem. And Republicans don't do that because they don't fight back. They don't. They serve the same system. A lot of the Republicans that won in the midterms serve the same system, and that's a problem. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of people other than some people in safe red areas that won that I'm like super excited about. There just aren't any. Even though if Trump was on the ballot, you would have seen higher turnout in a lot of places. You would have seen a couple of house flips in Michigan. You would have seen a couple of house flips in Pennsylvania. Like, they don't understand this. They think that DeSantis is going to do well in these areas and have this down ballot effect. They think he's going to win Pennsylvania. The guy doesn't even support fracking. I mean, seriously, they think that's going to play out too well. And you're going to say, oh, well, he's in Florida. Trump doesn't even support fracking in Florida. When the ads run that say he's against fracking, it's not going to make a difference. He's allowing himself to be outflanked on it by the way that he's really conducted himself his entire career in terms of energy. Foreign policy, a little bit of a mixed bag. Immigration, against illegal immigration, that's fine. But where does he stand on legal immigration? He voted to allow the president to raise visa caps time and time again throughout his tenure in Congress. When he's the president and his administration is filled with a lot of these establishmentarian GOP types, even more so than Trump's admin was, which is a legitimate criticism of Donald Trump, what do you think he's going to do regarding immigration? What do you think he's going to do? And that's a really good question, and we know the answer to it. So, Real Texan Politics is 50-50 voter. Here I tend to lean towards Trump, but I do think they have their serious pros and cons that need to be looked at, would enthusiastically support either one if they're the nominee. And they do have pros and cons. This whole, oh, you're a Trump cultist tagline needs to go, because it's not true. I mean, anybody that's actually watched the channel for the past few years have known that I've given Trump a fair share of legitimate criticism, just like I'm giving Ron DeSantis a fair share of legitimate criticism. I've also given Ron DeSantis a lot of legitimate praise where necessary. I've made videos praising his actions. I did a whole documentary on his rise to power in Florida. Not a lot of people are talking about that, but it's true. And I would support DeSantis, but I wouldn't do it as enthusiastically given the people around him in terms of the general. Given the people that are propping him up, it's not like he's, attacking him from like a paleocon worldview, going out there and saying, hey, Trump failed here, here, and here. I'm going to run because I think we could do a little bit better. Plus, I'm younger. No. He's being baited by all the worst people to throw his hat in the ring. And that's what it comes down to. And that's why I oppose his candidacy in the primaries. And his supporters, like the diehard DeSantis people, the diehard neo-never-Trumpers, because I call them that because maybe they did support Trump or pretended to in the past, but don't now. I coined that term, by the way. A lot of other great people have been using it, but I've coined that term. And like, these people are the most insufferable people. If you actually deal with them, it's just incredible to see how insufferable they are. I mean, they sound exactly like resist libs. They're in the cult in terms of the fact that they will never give Trump any credit. They will criticize him for breathing the way that the left does, and that's a major issue. So I'll continue to criticize everybody where it's necessary, because as a political analyst, that's what I kind of have to do. But either way, it's just insane. John Waffle says, I kind of took a break on politics for football, but we need to re-educate the DeSantis supporters on who is really funding him. And this is true. Paul Ryan wants him. Some of these people will say Trump is bad because he caved to Paul Ryan. And then Paul Ryan says, I want DeSantis in 2024. What does that exactly, how does that exactly make sense? What in that line of thinking makes sense? Because yes, there are a couple people that are still pro-Trump that I despise, and some of them are establishment or grifters, and yes, they need to get out of the way. But still, far more of them are supporting DeSantis. Now, who are the people around Trump that I don't like? Well, Lindsey Graham is one of them that has supported him, already given support in the primary. So that's what it comes down to. Now, Trump has called him a rhino recently. He's been spending less time with him. That's a good sign. The other guy's Rick Grinnell. And another one is Elise Stefanik. These two are awful. And if Trump really picks Stefanik for his VP before the primaries, may not even support him over DeSantis. Same thing with Rick Grinnell. That'd be a train wreck, because at that point it would be awful, because it would show that what really is the difference between the two. But I don't think he'll do that. I really don't. They may be around him, but I don't know if he's going to pick them for VP. Stefanik, I think, might actually be picked for VP, which would be an utter train wreck. Noam is another example of somebody that I wouldn't like, but if she was on the ticket, it would not be as bad as Stefanik. He's probably going to have to choose somebody more establishmentarian, because he's going to have to kind of unite the party behind him. I think DeSantis would be a perfect VP choice if Trump moved his residency. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, because that would be the unity on board, because you're going to have to do that after a divisive primary. And that's what he did back in 2016. He picked Pence, who didn't run for president, but kind of was similar to a lot of those people that did run for president against him. So, yeah, about that. And we know how that ended, but still, I mean, at the time, you can't say, oh, that was a bad pick. I mean, Trump's going to want somebody that's loyal, but he's also going to need somebody that kind of does have appeal to the other candidates in the race, I should say. So, yeah. In terms of who's really funding DeSantis, yeah, exactly. And in terms of the last super chat that I was reading, because you look at who's funding him, it's not a lot of good people. And you could say, well, Trump on the jab or whatever, DeSantis didn't shill for. He did. 100% did. Just about as much as Trump did. He promoted it time and time again. They both have pretty much the same policy on it. I'm not thrilled with Trump's stance on it. I don't think he would have had that stance back in 2015, back in 2016. Part of it might be, oh, he kind of like created it, so he's going to prop it up, but it doesn't excuse it whatsoever. So again, the people that are like, oh, well, this is awful that Trump is doing this or whatever. It's like, yeah, but they don't look at the other side of things. Lovely Six says, I don't want to be negative, but 2024 is not looking good. Which states would Republicans have to win to get the presidency? Well, it's going to come down to Nevada, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Add those three to the 2020 totals, you're there. Now, it's not looking good. I think Wisconsin with Trump would be, obviously we know. I think that DeSantis would do better than Trump in places like Georgia or Arizona. But I think that both of those, you could argue Trump could win. But it all comes down to the party being united. Because this is another thing, and I wanted to pull this up. I talked about this in my last video, and it's very true. Even George Conway, who's not really the best person in general, he's been a diehard never-Trumper. He's been a neocon his whole career. And he surprisingly had a good take because he said if DeSantis wins the nomination, he'll wind up with a decent portion of the electorate hating him or not being as enthusiastic to turn out for him, which does matter. We saw the divisive primaries this cycle. They hurt Republicans. Democrats had really none nationwide in a lot of these places. And even when they did, if you have like one of those far left, ma-justice Dems, ma-progressive types, whatever, like they still unite behind the Dems. The Republicans don't offer anything to Trump's base in the general most of the time. It's the same 1994, 1984 talking points, and enough is enough. I mean, this is a new era. This is a new generation. You have new demography. You're not going to win like this. You're not. Plain and simple. So either way, you're going to nominate DeSantis, and it's going to be in a divisive primary. And even if Trump's, giving him soft support and says vote for him, you're still going to have a lot of people that are going to be like, no, Trump deserved that second term. A lot of people feel as if he truly does. He's not going to, be mandated to pass that torch along. And if you see these GOP establishment figures just rushing to get rid of him for DeSantis, well, we know what's going to happen. And a lot of his base is not going to be enthused. Now, I'll flip the script and be fair here. If DeSantis gets 40 to 45% of the primary vote, and Trump doesn't even get a plurality, but somehow does win the nomination, and they're going to put out all the stops on him just like they did in 2016, but let's say they're successful, or they're not successful, you're still going to have a lot of people in the GOP that are going to do everything possible to sabotage a general election run in 2024. This is very true. You'll have a lot of people that will do everything possible to sabotage him. And as a result, it's not going to end well. It's not. So that's it. And you talk about which states, we're not quite there yet. A lot can happen. We could I'm not giving up doing predictions, but we're going to be probably doing a lot of scenarios. And then we're going to have people that are going to come in here and say, well, why should I listen to you? Because you didn't predict an R+3 national environment where the GOP barely retook the House. Yeah, whatever. Listen, the predictions were not that great this cycle all around. I really failed to see anybody that got the generic ballot correct, which again, we were not far off, and then got all of these swing races down. Because it defied logic and reality in many ways. In many ways. So, all right. Nicholas Pyravetstis says, is it fair to say as of now there's no path to victory in 2024? It depends on what happens next year. DeSantis might not even run. Even then, the GOP is still going to try to sabotage Trump in the general, which is another massive problem. Guy Smith says, I think it's legitimately possible that a lot of the establishment support for DeSantis is from TDS blinding neocons into supporting literally anyone. And this may have some merit. You did see a lot of these people, even some Democrats, cross over against bad Trump endorsees in places like Georgia. They crossed over to vote for better candidates like Mike Collins and Rich McCormick that defeated the weak losers that happened to get the Trump endorsement, or the grifter and alleged sexual offender in the case of Vernon Jones. So Like, yeah, it is possible that some of that does come from that. I get that. But at the same time, they're still the ones funding him. He's going to have to rely on a lot of donor money from outside of the state of Florida to win. And it's a problem. And for everyone saying, well, Trump didn't do enough to give money to candidates in the midterms, because I've heard that claim too. DeSantis has a war chest he's sitting on of over $200 million. How much of that did he use? Like zero. I mean, he spent some on himself, which he didn't even have to spend. I mean, yeah, he campaigned. He did a rally with Kerry Lake. He even did one with Mastriano, to his credit, which is why I don't think he's inherently like a bad guy as much as the other people are. But still, I mean, he didn't do enough to help financially. And the only person that he really cared about campaigning for down the stretch was Joe O'Dea, who was an open never Trumper, rhino, pro-abortion, pro-gay marriage, lost by 17 because the base didn't turn out for him. It's true. So, Southern Missouri says, in my opinion, Trump will lose in 24 because the base can't get him to win. He has to win the neo-Republicans and independents. I think DeSantis can do that because he's just not Trump. Well, it's deeper than that. I mean, he will have to perform respectably in the suburbs, but I mean, the suburbs are still moving to the left either way. The notion that DeSantis is going to be able to, get the suburbs back to a certain percentage and still retain Trump's base, it's not entirely founded. DeSantis would be lucky to get Trump 2016 margins in the suburbs. He won't even do that in many places. I mean, even Brian Kemp couldn't do that in Georgia, which was, insane because he won the state by a lot because he ran it up in the rurals. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but it is definitely, you could say, a zero-sum game in some regards. And if DeSantis is getting Romney rural margins or Dixon rural margins in Michigan, I think he'll do a little better than that, obviously, because it's a presidential year. What's going to happen at that point from there? Because then he's not going to be able to win Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. He doesn't have a path to victory. I mean, maybe you could say Nevada, like even if he wins Nevada, I'd have to look at the electoral map. What is he going to have to win? Nebraska's second to get to 269? That's not even a given. I mean, Nebraska's second district barely voted for Don Bacon. And Don Bacon is as rhino as they come. So, Lifo Foley says Mark Robinson's the best thing I've seen for 2028. The guy's awesome. I love the guy. He needs to be governor of North Carolina in 2024. Mike Lucas says Trump surrounded himself with swamp insiders. They didn't support him or want him to win. I'm not a DeSantis supporter. If being an outsider doesn't ensure you pick the right folks, then who cares? I agree with that, but a lot of those people that he picked are either out of the way, criticizing him for inconsequential things like, eating dinner, or they're supporting DeSantis for 2024 right now because they know they probably could control him easier because he's a career politician. I mean, a lot of DeSantis's current advisors, even, you have Ukraine shill Christina Pushover, is what I call her, which is exactly what she is. And then you have the press secretary that wanted to impeach Trump for 1/6. Like, even at the state level, some of the people around him are pretty weak. So, Sam Madsen says, if Kanye runs as an independent, who does he take more votes from in the general? I mean, at this point, I don't know. Like, what is his coalition? I mean, probably more so from Trump, but I don't know what percentage he would truly get in these states, or if he would even be able to get on the ballot in a lot of places. Like, what votes did he get in the 2020 election? Like, he got like 1% in some college county in Iowa or something. Like, okay. Like, I don't know if it's really gonna help either side. I don't think he'll get that much. We'll see. He's definitely somebody that will get a lot of free media, but I don't know what it will amount to unless something actually like drastically happens. So, I don't know. Could he defy the odds and put a campaign together? I mean, who will exactly fund his campaign? I mean, he could fund his own campaign for all we know, but is he really going to want to do that to a certain extent? I don't know. DJ Aftershock says Dem leadership in both chambers of Michigan are literal DSA members and progressive AOC types. Hopefully they ship crime to Kent and Oakland. They deserve it. Oh, they deserve everything they get. Michigan is a train wreck. They deserve everything they get. I mean, Michigan might be gone. You might say it's like the Democrats' version of North Carolina. I'd agree with that, actually. 2008 North Carolina was similar to 2016 Michigan. But again, that trifecta will work a massive amount of damage to the state. Be thankful you have what you have in Wisconsin, especially because you have that supermajority in the state Senate. This is why we need to gerrymander where we can. The Dems do it. Look at Maryland, look at Connecticut, look at Illinois, look at all these states. New York, they tried to do something ridiculous. I mean, come to think of it, if the Hochulmander went through, given the New York margins this year, maybe it would have completely collapsed, even more so than the current map. Who knows? But I don't know. Caleb775, thank you for the super chat, although the message is retracted. AR says, Ben Shapiro on his podcast today said the GOP establishment that voted for the marriage bill were cowards, but he is definitely the kind of person who would prop these people up. Yeah, he is. I agree. And he's right about that, by the way. He's right that they're cowards. I'm glad that he said that. But still, he has propped up a lot of these weak Republicans time and time again, and has trashed authentic conservatives time and time again. So, what exactly does that mean? Jack9298 says the Michigan GOP does not know what they're doing. Yeah, they don't. They don't. They're going to need a celebrity like Trump that has universal name recognition and is still relatively likable and brings decent policy in order to win a statewide office at this point. And still, a lot of the more establishment people did throw the race in terms of some of the down ballot races because of the fact that the candidates were a little bit more authentic or so. But either way, it doesn't matter. Dixon dropped the ball. And you can't entirely blame her. I don't think she was even that awful of a candidate ideologically wise. You might say, well, her Todd Aiken type gaffe may have affected her victory or whatever. There may be some merit in that, but it's deeper than that why she lost by the margin she did. The GOP in Michigan is non-existent. Whitmer and the Dems actually know how to win, and we could, instead of sitting back here and whining about that, we could maybe learn from these people, learn from our enemies, because they're winning. I just want to win. That's what I want. I want to win. I want to save this country. I don't want to worry about, we're going to look like a hypocrite at times. Okay, either we're going to look like a hypocrite and win, or they're going to look like hypocrites and lose, and win, and we're going to lose. So what really does it come down to? Ash Brothers says MAGA lost in 2022. Maybe it's not popular. Well, a lot of candidates that were quote-unquote MAGA outperformed Trump in 2020, won in 2020. But now apparently it's not popular because a lot of these types of voters are low propensity voters. GOP doesn't know how to reach them. The GOP doesn't give them a reason to turn out. Democrats didn't turn out at record high midterm numbers. Their numbers were vastly down from 2018, but problem was our numbers were not that high. And that's what it really came down to. Dylan G. Tech says, I can't help but feel pride for New York handing Republicans the House. 5 seats, 3 in upstate, 2 in Long Island. We worked hard. And that's because Zeldin really had a message. He talked about crime. He talked about things. And it worked for him. So, yeah. The GOP could really take notes. And they gave him a lot of support and funding, too. A lot of other candidates could have gotten funding. Now, thankfully, Zeldin did how well he did because Republicans have retaken the House. Although, still, we'll see what happens in the House. We'll see what actually goes down. Are we actually going to see any improvements? Or are we just going to see, maybe some of Biden's legislation will get watered down? So, the middle should probably be the answer there. But we'll see. Caleb775 says, what should we do about people in GOP who let pride prevent themselves from opening up to ballot harvesting as done by Republicans in SoCal to win their races? Vance backs it, I heard, and Zeldin. Yeah, Vance wrote a great op-ed essentially talking about where the blame really is to lie for the midterms. And I think people just need to understand that they're not going to win the way the system is working. And it's not because, oh, Trump, it's because of people like you who are unwilling to play the game to win. Now, some of the DeSimps actually are willing to play the game to win. I will say that about them. And they'll blame Trump for it for some reason because they're deranged. But no, it's 100% true. We need to play to win or we're going to keep losing. So Imperium Magistrate says, who would you rather support if you had to choose? Romney, Cheney, or Webb Golden? Webb Golden easily. I mean, Jim Webb is pretty much probably at this point more socially conservative than Mitt Romney. And I mean, the VP's a figurehead position. I honestly would vote for Jared Golden over Liz Cheney, especially because of the fact that Liz Cheney in the past couple of years has voted like a partisan Dem on many social issues. So Jonathan Williams says, why did Nevada 3rd not flip? I was expecting that. Well, because Republicans still did not get their act together in a lot of these places. Especially the Nevada rurals. I mean, those trends there, all those counties moved to the left. Laxalt did better than Trump in Vegas. He did better than Trump in Reno. But if he couldn't get the rural, why did he not get that margin in the rurals? Well, maybe because there was not enough harvesting or actual concerted effort to get the early vote out the way the Dems had. So yeah, I wonder why. But it was some of the larger rural counties where you saw the underperformance. And when you look at that, you can realize, hey, it's not just the suburbs versus a Trump rural base. It's just the GOP versus their own incompetency. And they'll blame Trump for it. And in certain cases, the incompetence is not a coincidence. It's on purpose. Thomas Brasher says most DeSantis fans are obsessed with red dots on a map like Georgia and Arizona and don't understand populism and electing a true threat to the system. Well, they don't. I mean, DeSantis has done some good things as governor, but you look at his even some of his top accomplishments. Oh, wow, we're not going to teach about gay sex until after the 4th grade. We shouldn't be talking about it at all in schools, honestly. So it's a step in the right direction. I'm fine with incrementalism so long as we keep pushing, but I mean, we have a long, long way to go before we really take our country back. And if this is the best we can do right now, you kind of feel a little bit disillusioned at times. But he has done a lot of good things, and he is popular. He knows how to win. But he could probably be a little bit more conservative and still win by a lot too. So we'll see. Spandon Samaran says money controls the candidate. Unlike Trump, Ron will rely on big money donors and they will control him. State versus national, not same. Yeah, exactly. And how you spend the money matters too. One of the reasons, not the only reason, just throwing that out there, that Trump did not win in 2020 was because of the fact that he had losers like Brad Parscale who lit hundreds of millions of dollars that could have been used down the stretch on fire. He needs competent campaign management this time around as well. So we'll see. Real Text in Politics is Lee Zeldin for RNC chair over Rhino Rana and Looney Lindell. I support Zeldin over both of them. I do. Lindell, he means well, but I don't think he's cut out for it. I don't. JV Leroy says, do you think the red wave was manufactured and purposely promoted by the media to energize Dems? I think it was a very inefficient wave is what I think it is. You have to look at that turnout drop-off in certain places. In deep red states, the coasts, the wave was there. It was just a regional wave of sorts. And that's kind of where the issue was. So John Cordisco's corner says 1 point for supporting Trump is the Dems and MSM will end up picking the Republican nominee. That's unacceptable. That's what it comes down to. This is not entirely like a shot at Ron DeSantis even. It's just more of the fact that, hey, you look at the fact that a lot of his supporters are like the people that I don't like, and a lot of them hate me, and a lot of them are insufferable, and it was their decision to be insufferable, not mine. So, yeah, I don't want these people making me vote for their candidate. And we kind of see it the other way around too, and that's kind of where the divisiveness lies. Now, obviously, if DeSantis wins the nomination, I would back him in a general, though it wouldn't be as enthusiastic as if Trump or somebody even better than Trump was the nominee, but I don't really see that person yet. So, Forza Jersey says, I love Trump, but how does he break 50%? He didn't in 16 and 20, assuming they won't run Cheney third party. Could his 16 win just be luck via the Electoral College? I don't think he needs to break 50. I think he could. I mean, looking at the trends we see in California, New York, even maybe a corner turned in Texas and Florida, you have the four biggest states moving maybe not Texas, but 3 out of the 4 biggest states moving right. Possibly the 5th in Pennsylvania as well by a lesser margin. Yeah, I mean, you could very well see him win the popular vote if Biden is as unpopular as he is right now. And that's another thing. Biden, we haven't heard much about Biden. Biden needs to be under attack right now. Trump needs to go out on the offense against Biden. Trump needs to start using Twitter again. I mean, I heard a Newswire report that he might be considering it, and he just should. Because even though Truth is his network, the people are on Twitter. That's a much larger reach, not just people that are your base or your diehards. Like, you need to reach everybody. Facebook, would they let him on if he's on Twitter? Because they said it was a 2-year ban. We'll see what happens. But if he's running for president and Twitter lets him on, and you have a lot of boomers on Facebook, you need to reach those people. If Facebook lets him back on, well, there we know. Nicholas Husman says the Minnesota GOP has to be second worst in the Midwest, only behind Illinois. No, that is not the right take. Illinois' GOP is way better than Minnesota's. I'm just going to say it. They've won statewide races in the past 12 years. Several. Minnesota, they haven't done that since 2006. I mean, that's a losing streak, a drought that rivals the Lions playoff win drought. And it may end up being longer than that, given a couple years. So, it's not going to end well. The Minnesota GOP is awful. They're a train wreck. Brandon Fairbanks says, bro, learn to get out the vote because we're pulling in new voters. Just got to get the couch normies to fill out a ballot. Yeah. This whole, sentiment on the right that's like the normies are, bad or whatever or easily controllable. I mean, it's kind of true that they are, but why don't we try to do our best to control them where we actually can? Where is our takeover of institutions? We just shy away from them and get rolled over and then maybe sometimes make our own that a lot of people don't pay attention to. No, we have a lot of institutions out there that need to be taken back. And we have a lot of voters we need to reach, and we need to build our own operation. Take back the early vote system. It benefited us in the past. We stopped using it. What happened? I mean, you could blame Trump for that. You could blame Trump for attacking that. I think he's right, though, to say that we got to reduce mail-in voting. But as long as it exists, we need to use this type of stuff to our advantage. And Trump did actually go out there and say that on a Truth Social post, and everyone's attacking his recent Truth Social post where he criticized the electoral system. And it's okay, again, the TDS kicks in yet again. Polite Rude Guy says, from the inner city here, Trump is the only guy I trust. I can't see myself and my family vote for DeSantis. Yeah, that's what it comes down to, really. I mean, that is really what it comes down to. A lot of people don't trust these career politicians. A lot of them live in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. To a lesser extent, Ohio and Iowa. I mean, DeSantis would do well in a place like Georgia. Compared to Trump, you could say. I don't even know if DeSantis would win Georgia given trends in the Atlanta metro and given how he would conduct a general election campaign, but I think it's possible he could win them. Nick H. says, would DeSantis lose Macomb County? He actually, I think, lived there for a couple years, but I mean, Romney lived in Oakland. It didn't help him really do that well there, especially given the time. I think DeSantis would not lose Macomb County, but I think it would be very close. It'd be like the John James margin of victory. And that's not good enough in Michigan. So Sam Madsen says, is Minnesota easier to win statewide than Michigan at this point? No, I still think Michigan is winnable statewide, but I mean, Minnesota still has, or at least had, some wings of the state legislature until this year. Well, so did Michigan. So, no, the Twin Cities have a lot more impact on the state than, Detroit and Grand Rapids. And even so, some of the suburbs of Detroit and Grand Rapids are still decently conservative, or decently Republican, I should say, in the case of Macomb. But, we actually have to have an operation there. Why is the turnout in rural areas now in some places lower than the turnout in the inner cities? Shouldn't be that way. Where's our operation? Who are we busing to the polls? Apparently nobody. Wonder why we lose. John Cordisco's Corner says, I'm proud to say the flips in New York carry the day for the Republicans. I live upstate in Claudia Tenney's district, and they did. Exactly says, what if we win the popular vote in 24 and still lose the Electoral College? What about all those blue states that passed laws to pledge the votes of the popular vote winner? They don't matter, because the popular vote interstate compact is not in effect, and it's not going to likely be in effect. So, yeah, I think that, honestly, it doesn't exactly matter. We have to win the Electoral College. Don't worry about the popular vote. It's funny now, though, that the tables have turned, and you have a lot of Republicans that are looking at the results, and they're like, okay, maybe the popular vote idea is not that bad. And it's like, no, it's not going to help you. It's really not. Like, it's good you're making gains in California and New York. It helps down ballot in local races and House races, but, I mean, still, I don't know. Nick H. says, Pat Toomey, Ron Johnson, and John James performing well when Trump is on the ballot is not a coincidence. And this is true. Trump's not a drag on the Republican ticket. In fact, he helps everybody. I mean, if you had somebody at the top of the ticket that lost Wisconsin by like 4 or 5, Johnson would not have won. You would have seen a similar thing with Toomey. John James would not have came close if Mitt Romney was leading that ticket. So, yeah. DJ Aftershock says, we saw the latest Virginia Dems Twitter blunder. They did a cringe post on Youngkin's top 5 songs. They've been broken. I also wish Cal ran in 7 instead of 10. I think Cal should run for Senate. That's what I think. If not governor in 2024. Because he's an overperformer. I mean, all cows. I mean, Joseph Cow, wasn't he the guy that won that deep blue seat in New Orleans back in 2008? I mean, I don't know what it is about the cows, but they managed to know how to actually win, or at least win over voters or campaign. Must run in the family. Britton J. Orwin says, are you sure Utah doesn't flip blue in 2024? Salt Lake County just reelected Sim Gill as district attorney. It elected Suzanne Harrison to Salt Lake County Council and Lanny Chapman as county clerk. No, it's going to go red. Even if it gets closer, still going to go red. Buddha TT Boy, thank you for the 5. PK says, Luzarowski in Connecticut costed us a seat, and Sununu should have signed the gerrymander. Yeah. He should have signed it. You would have had 1 seat. He didn't sign it. And what happened? It backfired. So, yeah. Forza Jersey says, what if Trump gets sick and drops out? DeSantis is our nominee in 24. Who's the best V for DeSantis to mobilize Trump's core base? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I would say Carrie Lake, but she doesn't hold elected office. But you're going to need somebody that would energize Trump's base for sure. Somebody that would be a fan favorite. Knowing how these circles would operate, they're probably going to say, oh, well, it'll be like Noam or something because she went on Fox News all these times throughout Trump's presidency. And it's like, no, that's not going to help in the slightest. I don't know. I mean, Vance, maybe. Not even sure. I think he's going to be solid in the Senate. He's, proving himself. But I don't know. I don't know who you would pick that like Trump's base would love. Because I don't even think Trump's base really trusts Vance. Because Vance was an ever-Trumper. So I don't know. Maybe somebody like Hawley he could pick. But I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if Hawley is that likable and he would give up that Senate seat. Obviously, Republicans would hold it, but he wouldn't be in the Senate, so would he even be like in consideration? I don't know who it would be. Let's see. Okay. Doomsday Machine says Brunson v. Adams is a case that the SCOTUS has taken in which the plaintiff argues over 380 members of Congress broke their oaths to protect the Constitution. Don't hold your breath, but keep an eye on it. Interesting. I guess we'll have to see what happens. Thanks for the super chat, by the way. Lions 1956 has put Walker donation link in chat. Everyone donate. Well, I'm not going to put the link in chat. It's teamherschel.com. I put that in my last video. So teamherschel.com/donate. That's where it is. And I don't know what money's going to do in the last 6 days, but we'll see. Lions 1956 says, again, Walker needs to win every... Yes, we know. I've said that probably around the 5-10 minute mark in this stream. But I don't have high hopes for it. I really don't. But yeah, he does need our support. I sent him a donation. I encourage everybody else to as well. Nick H says, I don't know what stings more, Laxalt losing or the Ogre beating Oz. Yeah, honestly, Fetterman being able to win in general is more of a black pill on society, that they elected this guy who is completely like half brain dead. Just watch him speak. It's like Biden is one of the most gifted public speakers by comparison. It's incredible. But no, he's going to the Senate, and he'll be their lol cow on the Senate floor. And conservative media, I feel like a lot of them, like that were trashing Oz, did so on purpose. So, they get more content with Fetterman. Sam Madsen says, how close does Kansas get in 24? I still think it would be like an 11-point Republican win. At the national level, it's not that far gone, but we'll see. It's moving to the left a lot. Imperium Magistrate says, who would you rather support? Oh, wait, no, we already did that one. I already answered that question. It was the Webb Golden ticket. The Ash Brothers says, how did AZ GOP lose? Weren't they supposed to be good? Well, I'm not going to say a whole lot on that matter for obvious reasons, but they just apparently fell short. I'll let you judge why. Jack 9298 says, how would The Rock be as president? Probably like center left. PK says, why are our swing state GOPs so bad? Probably because they're swing states. And you might say, well, that's a cop-out. But, I mean, it's true. Like, the states that have built up these apparatuses like, Florida, that are not swing states anymore, aren't swing states. And a lot of these states are like Trumpian states where the GOPs there are kind of divided between like the old guard that would just keep losing and then like a lot of like well-meaning grassroots people that don't have a lot of funding. And the answer's in the middle. So yeah, these states are swing states. They need Trump to be on the ballot to, I guess you would say, win a lot of these states. Like I said, talk about Toomey and Johnson. Yeah, they outperformed Trump, but if Trump was not the Republican nominee, there's a good chance they would have lost. Forza Jersey says, what does a winning post-Trump GOP look like? Well, we're not quite there yet. I mean, Trump is still probably going to be the nominee. Now, he might not be. I think there's a increasing chance he's not because they're going to do everything possible to put the stops on him like they did in 2016, and he doesn't have the same fire and energy, so we'll have to see. I don't know what the map is going to look like in 10 years, probably just like the map right now, but we'll see. Lions 1956 says Walker's an electoral juggernaut, star in the party, future president. Yeah, no, he's not either of those three, but she does need to win. He does need to win. He does. Nick H says Abbott doing worse than Trump in the Rio Grande Valley was a big letdown. Yeah, and again, it kind of just shows that the firepower really brings a lot of these new voters to the table. And Abbott did better than Trump in some RGV counties, but you didn't see this massive shift to the right that you did with Trump there. Or even in some of these special elections. Polite Rude Guy says voting for Texas to leave U.S. if we lose 24. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I wouldn't. Well, the U.S. needs Texas more than the inverse, but they never would let Texas leave. But it's fun to think about, I guess. Imperium Magistrates is not going to lie. These midterms blackpilled me hard. True. I mean, there's a valid reason to be blackpilled right now because the party's divided. You have a lot of stupid people that take the wrong takeaways from it, and the party's going to continue to be divided. Then you have Trump being attacked for inconsequential things yet again because he happened to, I don't know, eat with some people at a table that he didn't know. Okay. Guess that he should never be president now, huh? Like, seriously? It's the same stuff over and over again. Derangement. But I'm afraid it's catching on more so than it used to. But I don't know. He has to respond to it. He has to be in the media more. He has to get out and rally. And he has to stay on message too. But he still needs to have, he still has to have his moments. People will say, well, you actually can't, you can't say that this guy's electable because he says off the wall things. But it's like, that's what made him lovable to begin with, one could say. And you need somebody to do that. You do. The more reserved Trump in 2020, that didn't help a whole lot. The messaging was also not the best. Now, the messaging has improved. I've noticed that. The energy does need to keep improving if he wants to, destroy his opponents in the primary and unite the party behind him. He's going to have to get that subtle growl back in his voice. He's going to have to be a little bit, angry. He's going to have to talk about the issues he used to talk about more, which, I said that he's doing more. But a little bit more doesn't hurt. Lions 1956 says, I would vote for Walker for president. Why do you not agree? Well, if he's the nominee, there'd be no choice. But I don't believe he ever would win a nomination. He's basically, when you talk about his public speaking skills, I don't think it would be just an extreme measure to compare him to, Fetterman in some ways. He's not as bad, but he's about the closest thing the Republican Party has to John Fetterman. Imperium Magistrate says, which Walker is better, Herschel or Scott? Probably Herschel at this point because he needs to win, but Scott Walker fell off. He's out of the picture. Marty Smith fan Sue says, Rep Trump must start going after Biden. Said he's doing me. Redacted. I want a vision. It's okay. He can beat Trump, but he sounds like a crybaby. And on Twitter, well, yeah, he needs to be on Twitter. But of course, he's always going to say things like, oh, well, this happened. If you've seen his rallies post 2020, most of them, or much of the content, has very little to do with 2020 in and of itself. It's still there, and he's going to throw that out there, but he didn't even mention it once in his announcement speech. Is he not allowed to post things on social media from time to time about how he feels like he got screwed or something? I just feel like that's a little bit of a petty criticism. But yeah, like I said, it's better he stays on message so long as he brings the energy, so long as he brings the fire, or he will start to lose people, especially because the GOP establishment is going to be putting all of their eggs in the DeSantis basket. So, yeah. Forza Jersey says, I miss 2015-16 Trump. It's good times. That Trump's not coming back, more likely than not. But hopefully we could get a better Trump than 2020 Trump. Exactly says, how do you feel about handing out door knock lists and having ballot drop boxes at Trump rallies? Could give everyone 10 addresses and have them go. Yeah, I don't know about the drop boxes at the rallies because they're kind of taking place in arenas or, fairground places or whatever. I don't think that having ballot drop boxes in temporarily political places is necessarily going to change everything. But yeah, I think that the door knock list is a good idea. Or we're going to end the stream after these last few super chats, so bear with me here. Exactly. Oh, we already did that one. Sam Madsen says, in the Michigan State House, Republicans lost the majority by losing a Marquette seat and 2 Macomb seats. Do those all go with Trump on the ticket? Probably. Probably. Alliance 1956 says, you comparing Walker to Fetterman is so wrong. Well, I'm not exactly comparing him to Fetterman. I'm just saying that in terms of his public speaking skills, he is not a viable candidate for the presidency in any way, shape, or form, even if he does win next Tuesday. I don't think he's as bad as Fetterman. I think he would eviscerate Fetterman in a debate easily because Fetterman is a train wreck. But yeah, I don't think that he's necessarily the guy, or will be the guy. He basically is sealing as senator of Georgia for probably 1 term. So Nick H. says, Fetterman winning proves it's not about persuading normies anymore. These people are beyond saving. Yep, it's all about getting the base to turn out. That's all it's about. And they're going to get the wrong takeaway from it like they always do, and they're going to keep losing, and they're going to keep blaming Trump, just like in Georgia in 2021. So let them keep going. And I'll just sit back here and kick my feet up on the desk and say, hey, I told you so. But they'll never listen. They'll never learn. William Fitzgerald says, which state can Ron win? Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, or Minnesota? Of those 4, Wisconsin, but even then, that's not a sure thing. His ceiling is whatever Johnson got in 2022, which was not very good, especially compared to expectations. Lions 1956 is Trump's easiest path to win in 24. It would be Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Nevada. Easily. That's the clearest path to victory. But is that path even going to be there? Given the divided party, I'm not entirely sure I can say it will be, but we'll have to wait and see. We're a little bit under 2 years out. I'm going to be covering all of this. If you guys have any video idea suggestions, feel free to put them in chat because, it's more of a drier season than it was a month ago. Lions 1956's Walker at the top of the ticket would be a landslide. Well, if that's the case, he would have been able to win Georgia outright. But what can I say? We're going to end the stream. Like the stream before you go. Hit the bell. Subscribe. And make sure you join the website if you want to catch the exclusive video I'm dropping tomorrow. The link for that's in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.